Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Our channel provides world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. And it's actually more than a channel. It's actually a network. We're on so many different platforms. So wherever you are watching us in the world, please do subscribe and follow us. Our show today is Authentic Achievements. And we're going to be talking about a very hot topic. It's breaking barriers, women entrepreneurs overcoming adversity. And joining me in this space today is the star of our show. Her name is KIM-ADELE Randall, and she is located in London in the United Kingdom. She has extensive experience when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And she also coaches and mentors other entrepreneurs and people who want to start their own business. She's an award-winning author. She's a TEDx speaker. She's a mother, and she's a great friend. Let's welcome her. Woo, hello.
Jacqueline, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm still buzzing from yesterday's reunion show. So anybody watching, if you've not had a chance to watch that yet, I would recommend it. Such fascinating stories.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a great opportunity for people on our team or guests or sponsors to come together and get 15 minutes to share exactly what it is that they do. Because many times as a show host, as you know, we spend time talking about issues or topics, but not as much as how can you bring true value to people. So speaking of that, KIM-ADELE, what is it that you can do to help our audience?
Thank you for asking. So I mainly do fractional C-suite work. So working with organizations to help get them investor ready and ensure that they have got a really scalable and saleable operation. But I also do exec coaching. So it's helping people just become their best, get out of their own way, and really start to turn that fear into hope so that they can move on and be successful. And I also have the joy of this show, and I've got another platform also called Authentic Achievements, sharing people's amazing journeys and their lived experience to help other people facing similar things to find some inspiration and some actions that they can take to succeed their way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. And something that you touched on, I really feel is in alignment. Of course, almost everything you say is excellent. In alignment with our topic today. You mentioned the fact that you have your own platform, which you do, which is Authentic Achievements. And people can go there and they can share their story, and you'll be able to share a little bit more about that. But some people would think, I don't understand. She has a platform and she has a platform. Are they competitors? Why are they here together? So why is it that we don't look at collaboration? Instead, we go competition. No, let's collaborate. How can we get the best from each other to help other people? What are your thoughts?
It's so true. And we had this slight debate, didn't we, yesterday? But, you know, I found a quote recently that I love, and that is that professionals collaborate and amateurs compete. We always worry, and I got people tell me all the time, Kim, you've got too many consultants in your network. And I'm like, why? How do you think we're going to learn and grow and evolve and develop? But equally, I want to be able to really help my clients. So I can't be an expert in everything. So if I've got people that I can collaborate with and go, oh my God, you want an expert who can do this? I know just the person. Let me introduce you. And I think that's how we all grow. And we're not in competition. We're about sharing the debate. That's how you and I met, isn't it, Dr. Jacqueline? Which is actually, how do we collaborate together to elevate both of us to learn more and therefore be better able to serve the people we're here to serve.
Absolutely. And I would encourage anyone who's out there, look in your LinkedIn network. Maybe look outside the network on LinkedIn. I know at one point I put in coaches on LinkedIn. I think over 6 million different ones came up. What can you learn by just reaching out to someone? Just a quick story. We have a show here called Coexistence and Sustainability with Pet Psychic Amina. And when I first started, I went on LinkedIn and I just put psychic because I was really interested in having a psychic on, and all these names came out and I went through and I found her. I didn't know anything about her except it was on the LinkedIn. We did a Zoom and she's been with me for 3 years. So you just never know where something's going to go. But what you do know is, what we know is, if you don't do anything, what's going to happen, KIM-ADELE?
Absolutely nothing. We've got to be present. I just think in every day, people that have watched the show before will know I've shared my grandparents gave me 2 pieces of advice. My nan said, make every day a school day. And my granddad said, live each day as if it's your last and one day you'll be right. And somewhere between the two of them, I think they've pretty summed up life. But we can learn something every single day. And actually, we should learn something every single day, because that helps us to continue to evolve. And we don't always learn from the places that we expect. I learn something from my little girl most days, or seeing things from a different perspective, or from my clients, or from friends, or just from randomly jumping into a conversation or saying hello to somebody, in the street. It's amazing what we can learn when we become curious. And I think I was having this conversation with somebody just the other day, actually. I think as I was growing up, and I'm not sure if this resonates, I was given lots of little sayings that now, at the age I am, I realise weren't really very true. So I was told things like, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. And yet we know that when people call us names, when people are mean to us, it can severely damage our mental health. So that's not a true statement. I was also told curiosity killed the cat. And yet I made my career out of being curious. I wonder why you do that. I wonder why I do this. I wonder why I think that. I wonder why you're thinking over there. I spent many years, when I was doubting myself, calling that asking the dim girl questions. But I now realise, actually, I was just harnessing the art of the curious. And so I wonder how many more of those that we've got that are subliminally holding us back.
You know how I love your quotes, and I love the real life stories that you share. One saying that I was told over and over again by my dad was, you can never be too rich or too thin. And I think in my life, I've always had an issue with my weight, thinking that I look one way, and just it's like in my head. You and I know, because we've talked about it so many times, but when someone tells you something when you're young, you really do take it to heart. And so for me, I've always been someone who's trying to get gold stars. Why do I need more gold stars at this age? It's kind of crazy. But today we're talking about breaking those barriers. So maybe taking those misconceptions that we were told, sticks and stones, and breaking through that, and maybe lending a hand to somebody who's younger, or somebody who's in a different stage of their life, but also struggling with those misconceptions that somebody told them were true.
It's so true, and it's such an interesting topic. In fact, just last Saturday, I was at the Women of the Year alumni event at Newnham College, and that event was titled "The Power of Making Trouble in the Most Constructive Way." And there were just the most fascinating ladies that were there sharing, their stories. The keynote speaker, for example, was the first non-white female judge to appear at the Old Bailey. Boy, what a journey had she been on, and had she had to make some trouble to break down those barriers that were what's expected, and those glass ceilings, and such great insight in the day. But equally, the one thing that came out again and again and again was how much we doubt each other, ourselves. So other people saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing," and we're all looking at it going, "I'm not sure I should be here because I'm not as amazing as you." And yet all of those people were amazing and had achieved amazing things. So I think, one of the things that was a sad reality in my life but appeared to play out also in in a lot of the ladies that I spoke to on Saturday, was the main support didn't come from other women. We weren't doing the reach down and help somebody back up. It was almost like there was that fear that, if I help them, they may be better than me and I may lose my spot. And I think that's now changing, but I think that's one of the biggest barriers we've got to break down, which is actually getting women to support women so that we can actually help each other, and not just women supporting women, women supporting men, men supporting women, but actually helping each other to grow and evolve, and seeing that there is a different perspective from the one that we've convinced ourselves is the truth. Because in the absence of a fact, our brain is hardwired to create a story. And that story sounds so plausible. And I heard so many of those, and I shared so many of my own, with conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks. It's like we start to believe our story, and we lose sight of how much of that was fact and how much of it was just fiction we created to make the gaps meet.
Kim, I love what you're sharing there. And I'd love to have you talk a little bit about this next topic. I remember during the pandemic, and I think you were there too, I was over on the Clubhouse app quite frequently.
Mhm.
And one of the things that really stood out to me initially was that you could go into any room and have a seat at the table, or maybe you're in the audience, but people like Grant Cardone, I mean, Kevin O'Leary, people with huge followings would be in the same room talking together to provide solutions. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. They're
Yeah.
collaborating. And that to me was a big eye opener. And when we started this platform here, I'm all about collaboration. I love introducing people to other people and seeing where that can go. My question for you is, what do you think it is that's made us antagonists of each other over the decades? And now coming to see the light and saying, wow, she's my sister. She's my friend. I have an opportunity to collaborate with her instead of, oh yeah, she's this and that and that and this, and I'm not having anything to do with her. What do you think was the catalyst for that change?
Oh, such a great question. And I think some of it came from, when I started my early career and we were in financial services, there was very few women that made it to the top. And therefore, I think there was an element of scarcity, and people were a little bit concerned that it might be positive discrimination. And therefore, if I give up my place, then I might not get another one. And I don't think we'd found our space. I grew up with quite a lot of female leaders that thought the best way to lead was to just be like a bloke in a skirt. So they weren't harnessing in on their emotional intelligence. They were just behaving in the same way. And I think as we've evolved, as we've become in a place where there's more voices at the board, there's more voices at the table, and yes, still not equal, but we're getting there. We're having more debate, and we're sharing more experiences. I think we're starting to see things from that broader 360. And I think one of the challenges is that emotional intelligence has been heavily underrated. It's been one of those things that we call, we even badge it a soft skill, which always makes me want to laugh out loud, because I'm like, if it really is soft, why do you find it so hard? Why is it so difficult to employ any form of emotional intelligence in any conversation, so that we can remove conflict? And we were chatting about this just yesterday, weren't we? In that if we really communicate, if we really listen to understand the other person, then we remove the misunderstanding, the misinformation, and the miscommunication. And as a result of that, we also remove the conflict. And I think we're starting to see more of that. I think also, as well as we've evolved, and the new generations are being brought up the way we wanted them to be brought up, and therefore they're challenging that status quo. They're challenging whether that's okay for us to do it that way, or if there should be a different and a better way. And I think that's how we evolve, isn't it? It's that constant, it's never really one big thing, it's the constant little things. And I love a quote. I remind myself constantly that diamonds are just rocks that did really well under pressure. And so I think that's it. As we find our diamond, as we find the sparkle for us to shine, it is in the constant resilience and evolution of handling what life throws to us and finding those roots. And I think once you open your mind to listen to somebody else's story, you can see so many more similarities than you can see differences. And I think we spent too long looking at what makes us different, and now I think we're looking for what makes us similar. How can we actually feel more like we fit in?
It's so interesting because what's coming to mind are two things. One, she or he is a diamond in the rough. Have you heard that expression before? Yeah. So we don't see it ourselves, but somebody else sees the potential for us being a diamond. And the other thing is, I'm wondering, I used to be told opposites attract. And then as I've gotten older, it's kind of more like, no, being more similar is more attractive than being more different. So we're talking right now about breaking barriers, and really what's the barriers we can break inside of ourselves, or the belief system that we have that we can break. But there are also other barriers that we need to break as entrepreneurs. And this one always comes to mind because we'll hear someone say, my business wasn't going the way that I wanted to go. I wasn't making enough money, so I decided to just close it up. And then somebody else will say, you were a minute away from, you were an hour, you were whatever it was away from making it. And the person in their case, they continued, they progressed, and whatever came their way, they didn't say no. But how do we know when there's truly a barrier that's put there for a reason to say, stop, it's a detour now. We're not going to go forward. We're going to follow the detour. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, another great question, because it's hard, isn't it, when you're in it and you can bang your head against what feels like a brick wall for forever. But then we hear of all these overnight successes that weren't overnight successes at all. They were the result of consistent hard slog and not giving up. And I can't remember who it was. It's in Napoleon Hill's book, but he had invested in a gold mine, and they hit the stream of gold, but then it dried up, and they decided to give up and sold it to somebody else and went back to do what they were doing. And that person was a scrapyard owner, and he decided to get an engineer out to come and have a look, and found out that they were 3 foot from the new line of gold. And he went on to make millions. And the first guy said he always remembered, I stopped digging 3 foot from gold, and went on to make millions in a very different business, because every time he came up against a no, he would remind himself that he stopped 3 foot from gold. And I think sometimes it's having that reflection, and sometimes we are being stopped for a reason. But I think for me, one of the things I always try and do when I'm stuck and I'm in that place where I'm like, I don't know if this is a hard stop, Kim, you're in the wrong place, you just need to give up, or if this is just a moment of pause and reflect and see whether or not there is an alternate. Do I need to move slightly to the left or slightly to the right? I spend time just being a bit more curious with myself. Challenging, why am I so convinced it's this? Why am I so convinced that wouldn't happen? What if the other were true? And sometimes putting yourself in the place where you've achieved it helps. So if you start off and say, so if you could do magic, where would you be in 12 months? And whatever challenge you come up with, well, you can do magic, so it's not challenge. So you have to go, well, no, because I can do magic. So it starts to help your brain to think about different ways that you can achieve it, different things that you might be able to do, or different people that you might be able to collaborate with, where individually you're finding it difficult, but collectively your strengths hit their weaknesses, and likewise, and that's going to be the catalyst that gets you through. I think the bit that I was very bad at doing for a lot of years was actually making sure I had time to just think, to just sit quietly and think about I had to be doing, I had to be solving, I couldn't just sit and be. And yet now what I find is, in times where I'm really uncertain, taking a step back and just sitting and being, and being curious with whatever thought comes into my head, has helped me to overcome things that I would have previously, that would have been my stopper.
And to just to elaborate on that, many times I found myself going for a walk and just thinking, right? Just taking that time. It's amazing how after you walk for so many minutes, all of a sudden you're sort of in another world, but you have that opportunity to really think and grow. And my question for you is, I was reading an article about a very successful performer, a musician, and the musician's success started to fade. And what he said was that he had a false sense of reality about his success. And so that is sort of, you can look at that statement one way or another, but many times we can have a false sense of reality about our success because we don't realize we are successful because we're looking at the dollars and cents. That's a big one. People say, how much money are you making? How much did you net? You know, and then it's like, oh, you're not doing well. That doesn't mean you're not doing well, because success to you could mean something else. But we could also think, because we have a zillion followers, that we're successful as well. And maybe that is success in and of itself, but maybe that's a false sense of reality about our success. So can you elaborate on either one of those?
Yeah, it's so true, because our view of success is such a powerful driver for us, isn't it? And I think, you know, I used to be very driven by what I perceived to be what was supposed to be successful. Had I got the right title? Was I continuing to progress up the ladder? Was I able, you know, was I earning what I expected to earn? I can admit all of that was before I became an entrepreneur. And all of a sudden it changes dramatically. And actually, you know, success looks very different. And depending on what life throws at us, you know, success looks very different. And I remember at one point when things were going horrendously badly for me, success to me looked like adulting appropriately for 12 hours. And that might not be massively successful for anybody watching and listening, but for me, that was something to celebrate. And it really got me to start thinking about, actually, what do I want? What would bring me joy? Because many things don't on their own bring me joy. Don't get me wrong, they're great, and they mean I can do lots more exciting things with my little girl and go and travel and things. So I'm very grateful when I get them. But actually, the things that bring me joy are the precious moments, the experiences we get, the friendships, the things that we do on the journey. And I think we have, as a society, we've created a bit of a despair and compare society. So we see the seemingly perfect airbrushed view of people's lives, and then we kind of compare our own messy reality and find ourselves lacking. But the point is, we don't look at, would we take all of their life? So, you know, we might look at somebody and go, oh, you know, I wish I got their money or their status or their followers. But would you take everything in their life? Because if you wouldn't, that's not a good measure of success. So if you go, I'd like all of that, but no, I don't want to have no privacy, and I don't want people to follow everywhere. I don't want everybody to have a public opinion of me and what I do and be second guessing everything that happens. And I wouldn't like that bit. Well, if you don't like that bit, you don't get the other bit. You have to have the whole. And I think that's one of our challenges, is we only look at the bits we want and we don't look at what's the cost of those. Because everything in life, there is a cost of doing and a cost of not doing. But we very often only look at one side of that equation. And that's when the other side comes up and bites us.
And I think social media has really made the situation more obvious, meaning that you see some people, they're always posting positive things. Oh, look at me, my beautiful home, and my this and my that. And then we have people on the other end who are, everything's horrible, everything's a disaster. And if you look at their overall life, what is their perspective? How do they live their life? What are their values? Those things all have to come into consideration too. We don't know those things because we can't ever really truly know someone like we're going to know ourselves. And oh, by the way, most of our lives, most of us don't even know ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think once we get close to kind of what are our values, what is it is important for us to be like, it helps us to make better decisions. It took me far too many years, I'm embarrassed to say, to really get to understand what actually was important to me. What were my values? What were my hot buttons? What are the things that, like, people do that? It's like, whoa, that's like, no. You know, I really, one of my big is, and that's why it's called authentic achievements, is authenticity. That we do what we said we'd do, that we are who we say we're going to be, and that we're honest and we have integrity. Because for me, it's really important that that's how I want to live my life. And if I get it wrong, that I take accountability for that, because it's never my intention. But actually, I don't get to just walk away because my intention was honourable. If my impact was off, that's the part I have to take accountability for. If not, I'm not really living my authentic values. But I think we don't spend enough time helping our children to understand that. We spend their formative years teaching them how to be like everybody else, instead of helping them learn to be who they're supposed to be. So yes, they need to know some all these other things, well, like how to read and write and all of those parts, but actually instilling in them early enough that you're unique. You are here to be whoever you are supposed to be. So put as much effort into what makes you you as you do into conforming to be just the same as everybody else. And I think if we could do that, we could do more of that, then actually we will create that diverse and inclusive society, because people will find their space by being themselves, not by conforming to whatever the societal norm is of the time.
And what you're talking about now just reminds me of that curiosity. What else is out there? How else are people living? What are their thought processes? And that's always intrigued me. It's that curiosity and wonder. I don't want to be with everyone who looks like me and does the same thing. That's boring. I want to find out what other people are doing, and I want to learn from them. But there are people who don't feel that way. They feel very strongly that they want to be with people who look exactly like them, who believe exactly like them. So my question for you is, when we're thinking about breaking barriers, is it important to include people who have a different perspective? So in other words, they're not that curious. They're kind of very much like, I want to be with people who are just like me, who think the same thing as me. Or do we want to just focus on people who are very different from us?
It's a great question. I mean, for me personally, I like to include them all, because they've each got a different and a unique perspective, and I can learn so much more by understanding why are you so determined that we've all got to look and be the same way? Because maybe there's something I've not considered that adds real value into that pot. But then equally, let's go look at these people that are really different to us, or that are that are able to be like super confident and go just go up to anybody and chat, and I think there's it's that I love learning from people. I think everyone's got a story in them, and I just want to hear it, because that's the most fun. That's going to be, it probably stems back from childhood when I loved reading and learning stories, and kind of disappearing into my own little head with the story that you created. But I think to exclude either takes away a perspective, and therefore stunts our ability to really grow. And I think one of the things that I've seen in life is that we do live in a world of polarity. For every up there's a down, for every left there's a right. So nothing exists unless its exact opposite also exists. And so if we really want to start opening our minds and breaking down the barriers, we need to be able to see things from a different perspective, so that we're fully informed and we can make better choices. And the best way of being fully informed is to be passionately curious. It's how we navigated as children. And you think, as children, we did some amazing things that would today probably terrify the living daylights out of us if we had to do them. So, we learned how to speak for the first time. We learned how to walk and talk and run and jump. All things that if you said to me tomorrow, Kim, you're going to learn them again, I'd be like a bit overwhelmed and a bit like, where do I start? And so why did we do it as children? And I think it's down to the fact that children are just curious. They don't know what they don't know. So there's just a sponge for information. So they just listen and observe and absorb, and then replay. And I get that now sometimes. My little girl, bless her, who clearly spends far too much time with mummy, because sometimes some of the things she says, I was chatting to one of her friends' mums the other day, and she goes, I love talking to Scarlett. It's like talking to a little baby adult. Because her phrases, her mannerisms, and that are just not per se of what you'd expect from a 7-year-old. She'll come out and go, well, mummy, that behaviour wasn't very appropriate, was it? Like, oh no, lovely, it probably wasn't. Whereas that's probably not something one of her little friends would say. And you realise how much they observe and absorb what's going on. And so I wonder, and I try and push myself to go, what if I observed and absorbed today? Or have I been so close-minded that I'm just stuck with what I already know? Because that, for me personally, and it's just for me, different for everybody else, for me personally, thinking that I'll never learn anything else is the most depressing thought I can think of, because I don't think I'm that evolved yet. So I want to keep evolving. I want to keep learning. I want to keep moving forward so that I can help Scarlett be the best version of herself that she can be. And I can't do that unless I'm willing to keep challenging myself to learn new things, to have different conversations, to be willing to be wrong. And I think that's one of the challenges. We've got such a fear of being wrong, of not knowing the answer. The amount of leaders that I work with who are terrified that they don't know the answer to every question. It's like, you don't need to know the answer to every question. You need to be able to ask better questions to help find the answer. But actually, if you knew the answer to every question, the organization's going to be very stilted very quickly. But I think it's, how do we overcome that fear of not knowing everything?
Excellent points as always. Thank you, KIM-ADELE. And when you mentioned the fear, and we go back to children, watching children do what they do, it's just incredible because they don't understand, they don't even know about fear. We as the adults are the ones who instill that fear. Don't do that. Don't say that. And then we go for the rest of our lives thinking, I can't jump on that sofa for some reason. I can't, it's interesting because what is the age or what is the specific time when that childlike wonder and curiosity gets broken, gets eliminated, and all of a sudden you're living it from a fear-based instead of a curiosity-based?
Oh, it's such a great question. I'd love to know the answer, but I think some of it is in how we position things, isn't it? I always say to Scarlett, I won't ever say that she was naughty. I will say what you did wasn't a good choice, but the beauty about choice is you can make another one. That wasn't a good choice. We can make another one. I'm always really careful to make sure that I distance her from the label, because I think the problem is you hear children they've been given a label and then they make it their own. So you're naughty, or you're not very clever, or you're not this, or you're not that, and we make them believe the label, and then they take it into their adult life, and we all become self-fulfilling prophecies. So whatever we're telling ourselves is the label is going to be what happens to us. I'm a strong believer that what we believe is what we will achieve. So if what we believe is negative, that's what we will achieve. If what we believe is a positive, that's what we'll achieve. It may take a little bit longer, but we'll get there. And so very often, in fact, I think in almost 100% of the cases, we win the game in here before we win it anywhere else. And so it's helping them understand it. And I watch with Scarlett and with her friends, and I see in adults, we're very quick to be able to say what we don't want. But we very rarely write our goals in what we do want. So it's like, I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be getting older. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. When you ask, what do you want? What do you really want? It changes how we're viewing things. And I think it's how do we keep that wonder? Because as children, I think they start at the age of 7 to bring in their start part of the label that they're creating. And then they continue to look for evidence of it. So you end up with I always call it the table of belief. And every time something else happens, you add another leg to that table until in the end, you've got the most stable table you're ever going to have. But it might not serve you. It might not serve you. And I guess now the benefit of getting older and looking back is very often you've viewed it with your childlike mind, and there might have been a completely opposite thing that happened, if you ever replayed with a family member a situation that you vividly remember from your childhood, and they've got a very different memory of exactly the same thing, and the likelihood is both were correct. They were just viewing it from only the viewpoint that they could see and hadn't been able to take into account what the other person could see. And I think it's that, it's how do we keep questioning ourselves to keep that curiosity. I mean, the bit I love about kids, they get really terrified. I was all the time on a really big slide. No, I can't go down it. And I'm like, are you sure you can't go down? No, I can't go down it. And then you give her favorite little stuffed teddy, and all of a sudden she can conquer the world with this inanimate little stuffed teddy. But actually what it is it gives her the hope and the belief that she's going to be okay. And I think maybe that's the thing we need, is what's the thing that we can have as an adult that we can hold on to in those moments where our fear is taking hold and telling us we can't do something, that will give us the courage to just give it a try.
Courage. So important, being willing to put yourself out there. I had someone say to me recently, I really admire you because everything you do is your passion. And I thought of the word admire, and I was wondering if that person, if it was a sincere, genuine appreciation, or if it was more of a negative kind of jealousy or something based on fear. Because many times we fear putting ourselves out there. We watch someone else doing it and we really resent them for doing it because we are not putting ourselves out there. So if you were coaching someone, an entrepreneur, and they were looking to take their company public, like what you were talking about in the beginning, there's obviously that thought that I'm not good enough. No one's going to believe in me. So how do you support someone and help them? Obviously, it's a big question, but what are some of the first steps, I guess, to looking at taking your company public?
Great questions. I think one of the big challenges that I find going into organizations is the owner. The organization can have grown. I'm working with a couple at the moment that they're doing really well. They've got themselves in the tens of millions, but they are stuck in that business. It works well if they're in it, but actually their fear is if they're not there, it won't be done the way that they want it to be done. And actually what they've not got is that scalability. So one of the first things I say to people is, what's your exit plan? So what happens when you are no longer in the business because you don't want to be? How does the business then move to survive that? And a lot of that is getting out of your head all of the things that you already do, and all of the things that are assumed knowledge because they're in there. And the second one, and one of the ones that really holds up organizations when they're seeking investment or looking to go public, is you're going to have to go through due diligence. For you to be able to get what you think the business is worth, you are going to have to go through due diligence, which means you're going to have documented processes. You're going to have governance, the one thing everybody hates. The minute I bring up governance, you see people's eyes glaze over and start rocking, going, oh my God, what's she talking about now? But actually, when you put good governance into an organization, the organization runs itself. And that's what takes the brakes off your how quickly you're going to get to succeed and be able to be in front of that investor. And I think for me, the first things to be looking for if you're seeking that investment is who would you like to invest in you? Where would you like it to go? What values do you want them to have, and do you want to have, so that you can actually pull that in? And it's then about building that cohesive story and being able to take that step away. There's research done that shows that in a lot of people, when they get ready to either sell it or to invest in it, it's not quite worth what they want it to be worth yet. And so they bring in an MD so that they can start to do some of the things they want to do that don't involve them being in the business every day. And in 85% of those cases, it fails. And the reason it fails is because they bring in an MD in their likeness. And so one of the things I help people with is, it's your baby, your business is your baby, absolutely. And you put blood, sweat and tears into growing it and developing it and bringing it to life. But imagine your baby is now ready to go to university. What university do you want it to go to? Do you want it to go to Harvard, Stanford, Cambridge, Yale? Or do you want it to go to the local university, or in the UK, what used to be the polytechnics? When you ask people that, they'll be like, well, of course I want Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Cambridge. I'm like, right, so you're going to have to find a Harvard, Stanford, Yale professor. Your baby is now ready for you to hand them over, but you now need to bring in somebody who is of that caliber that can help your business to just level itself up. And you don't always need them for loads of hours. Most of the clients that I work with them for between 5 and 10 hours a week for a period while we actually get them investment ready, because they don't need me to run the everyday. What they need me to do is put in the governance, infrastructure and scalability of what they're doing so that they can actually meet that due diligence.
Incredible tips there. And I know that the work you're doing is helping so many people, and there's other people out there, obviously across the world. Can you work with anyone regardless of where they are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the beauties of what I do, particularly since COVID, is at the minute a lot of my clients aren't actually people that I've ever met face to face, but we've still been able to successfully scale their business, create winning cultures that are embedded in their organization, and take them on to huge successful growth and investment, because it's about following the right process and the structure and taking people on that journey. And having done it now for 20 odd years, it's doing a lot of the same things, and therefore you can help people get there faster, because it might take me 5 minutes to do, but it's taken me 20 years to learn how to do it in the 5 minutes. And that's what people want, is they want the speed and the reassurance that they're going to get a return on that investment. And for me, that's one of the biggies, is that for every client should be confident that they have received a return on investment. And I pride myself on the fact that I do that early, so that then actually they'll not only got their money back, they're in bonus time. And funnily enough, they really like working with you when that happens.
Big smiles across the board. Absolutely. Tell Pudding we said hello. Hi, Pudding.
Oh, sorry. The dog does always like to come and have a little chat, don't you, Puds? Where you've gone now, you're down here. Look. You want to say hello? Little needle.
Oh, what a sweetheart. Hello. Hi, Pudding. So a final question I have for you as we close out today for Breaking Barriers, Women Entrepreneurs Overcoming Adversity. There was a saying that it takes 3 to 5 years to really make it in business. Is that still accurate? And if so, or if not, what are some of the caveats that you can share about that?
Oh, great question. And I think, I don't know if the timeline has stayed the same, but it is broadly, when you look back, the first few years, you're really establishing who you are, who your market is, what you're trying to achieve. And then we start our own business, and we've got a thing we want to do. I did mine because I wanted to help organizations to achieve significant growth and deliver a culture where their people thrive. That was my mission and purpose in life. And yet on day one of being an entrepreneur, I also realized that all of a sudden I'm marketing, and I'm sales, and I'm HR, and I'm IT, and I'm payroll, and all these other things that we have to do. And so in those early years, it's the building blocks of pulling your business together and making sure that we keep too much to ourselves too soon. And I think for me, one of the number one tips that I give to people is have a look at what you're doing every day. And create your do, delegate and dump list. So what are these things? What are the things that you're doing because you have to do them, either because you're the only person who could do them, or, and this one's quite important, they're the ones that bring you the most joy. And the reason it's important to know those is you don't want to lose those. They're not the ones you want to delegate, because if you do, you're going to have delegated away your joy. So you do those bits first. Then you want to have a look at what are the things you could delegate. Even if you can't delegate it today, they are the ones you could delegate in the future. And the third one is, what are the things you should dump? And regularly review it, because we'll do things because it sounds like a good idea, and then they become habit. Until we go in and be really conscious on what value does this add to my client, to my colleague, or to my company? And if it doesn't add value to any one of those three, don't do it. And reinvest that time. Be really conscious of it. And my other top tip for organizations is, you're very busy when you first start out, and you can't think that you're ever going to be in a place where you can afford, you don't know when you're going to be in a place where you can afford to bring in people to do the delegate and the other parts. And I guarantee at the point that you can bring them in, you're then going to go, but I haven't got the time to train them to do it my way. So one of the things I recommend people do, and it's super simple, is doing whatever you do today in your business. Whenever you're doing a task, jump onto a platform where you can record yourself, at Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, doesn't matter what it is. Share your screen and talk to yourself as you do what you're doing. And that will become the suite of training for you when you are able to delegate, to ensure that people can do it your way. And it takes an extra 20 seconds on what you're doing today. So we can find time from that we can then reinvest in our future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I actually do that myself to train other people who've come in and do various things here. So you provide tremendous value. You can work anywhere in the world. How can people get in touch with you? And who is it that you want to contact you? Is it anybody, or are there certain qualifications or certain levels that a business needs to hit before they contact you?
Yeah, so for the business work that I do, I mainly work with organizations between 5 and 50 million. So CEOs, owners of those businesses that need some support to be able to get them to that next level, to get the next nought on there, and to ensure that it is scalable. So if you know anybody that meets that criteria, you can reach out to me directly. You can find out what we're doing on www.AuthenticAchievements.com, or you can email me directly at KIM-ADELE@AuthenticAchievements.com or Kim@KIM-ADELE-RANDALL.com, and we can help you get out of the business and focused on where it's heading. But then equally, if you've got a fascinating story that you want to share and want to join us on the podcast, again, same details to get in touch. But that really is about sharing people's lived experience to help other people to connect and find ways to get through whatever they're going through and be inspired.
Do reach out to Kim-ADELE and be featured on her platform, Authentic Achievements. Find out more about how to take your business public. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, as always. And yesterday you were on the reunion show, as we mentioned earlier. People can go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio, and they can actually watch the reunion show and the contributions you made there as well.
Bless you. It's always such a joy, Dr. Jacqueline. I so love our fortnightly chats. I always learn so much. So thank you for always being so kind with me.
Well, thank you. I always learn from you. I love those quotes, so keep them coming. All right, my dear, enjoy the rest of your day.
And you, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Please do reach out to Kim-ADELE. I'm going to put her information up again so that you can connect with her. She really is an incredible person. She's got tremendous amount of business savvy, and she can help you take your business to the next level. Also, please reach out to her to be a guest on her platform, Authentic Achievements. As we mentioned during this show about breaking barriers, it's all about collaboration. So if you're in the mindset of he's a competitor, she's a competitor, maybe you can look at it from a different way. And what can you learn from that person? As I mentioned, I love to introduce people to other people. And sometimes I've heard from people, wow, I can't believe that you're putting this person in touch with that person. That could affect your business. And maybe they're not going to do a show with you anymore. Well, then it wasn't meant to be. They were meant to go and be on another platform, be on as many platforms as you want, I say, because we have a voice and we have a message we want to get across. Share it as often as you can. And we love to have people on our platform. You can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com/join us, and find out the opportunities that we offer for you to have your content on our show, on our platform, I should say. Thank you to everybody watching on all the social media platforms, and also thank you to those watching on Roku worldwide, as well as Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, and soon more platforms to be announced. We're closing out right now. We're coming back with our next show. We'll be back shortly. Bye.